Today we're going to be looking at how you choose the correct ND and polarizer filter for your Mavic 2 Pro drone. And I have to say, before I go any further with this tutorial, a big thank you to Freewell Filters for supplying me with the filters to use during this tutorial. So let's get started on how you choose those ND filters. So the obvious question is, why do we need to use filters on our drone? What's the point? What do they do for our drones and our footage? Well, when you have, I would say, a nice sunny day like today, the sun's just gone behind a cloud. When you have a day like today and the sun is out, then what happens is your shutter speed is going to be very, very quick. When you're filming, we are working with 24 frames a second, 25 frames a second, 30, all these different frame rates. And what we need to do is we need to use something called the 180 rule. So that basically means that if you're filming at, so for example, I'm filming at 24 frames per second right now, you need to double the frame rate to get your shutter speed. So at 24 frames a second, it's 1/48th. 1/48th doesn't exist, so we can use 1/50th. If you're using 25 frames a second, then you use 1/50th, 30 frames a second, 1/60th, and so on. That's the 180 rule. Just before I actually get into choosing the filters and explaining how the filters actually work, I'm just going to show you a piece of footage that I recorded earlier. And what it is, it's just going to be a wheel spinning, and that will show you if, for example, I'm filming at 24 frames per second and the shutter speed is, say, 1/500th of a second, then basically what's going to happen is you'll see a very staccato looking piece of footage. However, if I slow the shutter speed down to 1/50th of a second at 24 frames per second, what you should see is really nice motion blur, and that will say to you why it is that you need to use ND filters such as those from Freewell Filters. Now, when you buy a set of ND filters and polarizers from a company such as Freewell Filters, what you'll notice is they come in different strengths. How do they work? Well, you've got ND4, ND8, ND16, ND32. Well, what does that mean in terms of stops of light and slowing down your shutter speed? It's very simple. ND4 is 2 stops of light. ND8 is 3 stops of light. ND16 is 4, ND32 is 5 stops of light, ND64 is 6 stops of light. So it's very simple to know which filter does what and how many stops of light that they equate to. So now the important bit, choosing the ND filter for the particular scene that you're filming in. Now there is a guide, a very quick guide on the front of the pack of filters that I've got from Freewell that suggests how you can roughly choose which filter it is you want to use. Well, there's 2 other ways in which you can do it. The first is just to leave your drone on the ground, turn it on, and then once it's on, you'll see with the DJI app, for example, the histogram and the camera as it's being activated. Look and see with the histogram the correct exposure, and then just count back how many stops of light difference there is between what the exposure is right now without a filter, and then when you put the filter on, how many stops of light do you need. So for example, if it says right now that the shutter speed is 1/500th of a second, you count back, and this you really do need to know how you calculate shutter speed. So it's very simple. You either halve or double your shutter speed. So if it's 1/500th, you go 1/500th, 1/250, 1/125th of a second, 1/60th of a second. Now I know that's not 1/50th of a second, however it does say that it's pretty close, so you'll need 3 stop ND filter if the initial exposure is 1/500th of a second. And as you can see, I'm dealing with a day where the sun is coming and going as I'm filming, so it's very erratic where the light is, so it's not always going to be perfect. So you just have to watch when it is that you're filming and the conditions that you're in when you're filming. The second method for choosing your ND filter basically just involves sending your drone up in the sky. We're going to do exactly the same, except this time we're going to frame the shot that it is that we want, and once we've done that, we can find the optimum exposure on the drone. So again, say it's 1/1000th of a second, then basically we count back to 1/50th or 1/60th is the nearest we're going to get. So what you do is you go 1/1000th, so it's 1/500th is 1 stop, 250th of a second is 2 stops, 1/125th is 3 stops, 1/60th, so you'd need 4 stop ND filter if your original base exposure is 1/1000th of a second. Of course, I did mention polarizers. Now, how do you use them? Well, they come in the same different strengths, so like ND4, ND8. I think they're entitled PL on the end, so you'll notice that it is a polarizer. Now, the polarizer basically just works 90 degrees to the sun, and when you have, like I have next to me, the Loire here, the River Loire, you've got reflections. So that polarizer will help to remove any glare off of the water and help to give you a really nice piece of footage. So let's get on, let's attach those filters and see what we can do with those Freewell filters that they gave me with the footage that I'm going to get here next to the River Loire. So as you can see, my drone is at ground level next to the River Loire here, and as I've got it set up, it shows a shutter speed of 1/1000th of a second at f4. Now, I am actually recording the drone at ground level right now, just so you can see the difference before takeoff and after takeoff with the water. You might be able to see with the water, when the footage is played back, just how staccato it is. Now, as I said, how do we choose which ND filter it is that we need? Well, at f4 1/1000th of a second, just count back to 1/500th, 1/250th, 1/125th, 1/60th. So as I said, I know it's at 24 frames per second, I need 1/50th, and I could maybe put it down to 1/50th of a second, we'll see, but definitely I need a 4-stop ND filter to put on the front of the drone to be able to create really nice, smooth footage. Now, I did say that the pack does come with some polarizers, and this at the moment is optimum time to use a polarizer because we are 90 degrees away from the sun. So let's send that drone up, and I'm just going to put it up actually. I'm going to film some footage at f4 1/1000th of a second, and then I'm going to film it again at f4 1/60th or 50th of a second, whichever one I can get it back down to, and then you'll see hopefully the difference between the two. Let's get that drone up in the sky. I've come up to my second location here near to the River Loire, and as you can see, the weather is quite changeable, so the sun is coming and going, which makes it doubly difficult to get an accurate reading for your shutter speed. However, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to send the drone up. I'm going to see the shutter speed that it's giving me, and then how many stops of difference light it is between the shutter speed that it's giving me with just a regular UV filter, and then how many stops of light I need to bring it down in order to have 1/50th of a second. So let's get that drone up in the sky and let's take a look at what strength of filter we need. Okay, so just before I send this drone up, I've adjusted the shutter speed, so I've got a really nice histogram. So it says it's 1/640th of a second, which is obviously a bit of a difference to where we need to get to. In any case, let's send the drone up and then let's see how many stops of light difference it is between here and then what it is that I'm going to be filming, which is the castle. So this isn't my subject, but anyway, let's send the drone up. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the drone, and as you can see at the moment the histogram is already starting to peak, so I'm going to have to bring back the shutter speed again. So at the moment it's 1/800th of a second. Let's turn the drone. It's just a little bit windy at the moment, so I'm just going to have to be careful the shutter of the drone itself. So you can see there as well that the exposure again has changed. Let's bring it back 1/1000th of a second, and let's bring it back again. So let's bring it back again, and you'll see there that it says 1250th of a second. So there's a little bit of an overexposure there. But as you can see, just the difference between the ground light and the light up in the sky, the subject that I actually want. So if I just adjust where it is, for example, that I wanted it, let's just remove some of those heavy clouds up there that are overexposing a bit. Let's just bring it back just a little bit more. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between the ground exposure and then the exposure up in the sky. So it's 1600th of a second at f4 ISO 100. Now, as I said, I could put the f-stop down, but I don't want to. I just want the image and the footage as sharp and as I can. So that's the exposure right now. So let's think, if it's 1600th of a second, what do I need to bring it down to 50th of a second? So it's going to be 800, 400, 200, 100, and then 50. So it's actually pretty perfect. So it's 5 stops of light between what I've got here and then what I actually need, the ND filter that I need. But what I'm going to do this time is not add on a polarizer, as I'm not sure it would have much effect, although it might do considering the angle. I'm actually going to put on just an ND filter. But in any case, let's bring the drone back down, and so you can just see the difference between the footage I've got now and then the footage with the filter on. So there you go, that's why you should invest in some filters for your drone. Just trying to film at very high shutter speeds is going to make your footage look really jittery. We really do need to bring it down to those optimum shutter speeds of, say, a 50th of a second or a 60th of a second. Leaving the shutter speed at a very quick shutter speed like 500th or 2000th of a second is just going to make your footage look really jittery. We don't want that. We want that really nice motion blur so that when people are looking at our footage, it looks really nice and crisp. In any case, hopefully you've enjoyed the vlog. A huge thank you to Freewell Filters for sending me the filters to be able to use and demonstrate in this vlog as to why it is you need filters for your DJI drone or any other drone for that matter. Until the next time, thanks so much for subscribing. Thanks to all my old subscribers and any of you that are subscribing from this point onwards. See you again on the next vlog, wherever that may be.